Hello there, very good evening and a warm welcome to the news live on Channel I. I'm Sharon Mascarenhas.
A very good evening, I'm Charita Minipraraji, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news.
1 year has passed since the Easter Sunday attack. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit says that the offenders should be punished without any discrimination. President assures to bring responsible persons of the incident before justice. President emphasizes the vitality of taking measures to provide essential service effectively once the curfew is lifted. The balance of the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund escalates to 785 million rupees. President Trump decides to ban all immigrations into the USA.
Now for those and other stories in detail, starting off with local news. Church bells have rung across Sri Lanka, marking the first commemoration of the Easter Sunday carnage, taking the lives of 269 victims in several churches and hotels in the country by a group of suicide bombers. A special Holy Mass was held on this morning in remembrance of the deceased and injured victims of the Easter Sunday attacks. Following the commemoration, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, delivered a special address.
As you know, hundreds of people were killed on that occasion, people belonging to all the communities of Sri Lanka, specifically Catholic community. We lost some of our flock, and it was a very painful experience for us. I noticed the solidarity and the friendship and the closeness that you showed us on that occasion. You sent solidarity messages to us, you came to visit us, you went to visit the places where these attacks took place, you showed your solidarity to the families. In many ways you helped us. Therefore we wish to thank you very sincerely for everything that you did. Very specifically, it was, as you know, a serious provocation against peace and harmony in our country. Those who perpetrated this heinous act wanted racial riots, religious riots in this country. And by our patience, by working together as brothers and sisters of one country, we prevented that serious situation. And therefore, I thank you also for your kindness in joining us in ensuring peace and harmony, even under that kind of stress. We honor very specially all those who lost their lives, those who are seriously injured, and all those who lost their loved ones, families that had been broken up, those who are suffering. Because with a lot of resolve, they decided to be magnanimous on that occasion. They could have reacted, creating an untoward situation, but they did their best in being patient. I also like to recall on this occasion the 42 foreigners who lost their lives. They visited this country because it's a peaceful and friendly country, and we hope that they will not give up their love for this country and will return to this country as soon as possible. I wish to extend our grateful thanks to His Holiness Pope Francis, who, when he heard about it, from the first moment issued messages of condolences and solidarity with us. He sent his envoy to Sri Lanka to express his closeness to us. We also thank him for making a generous contribution towards the needs of these people. I would also like to thank the foreign missions in the country, particularly the high commissions and embassies of all the Islamic republics, for their prompt visit to me after the attack to convey their solidarity with our nation. I wish to express my sincere thanks to many foreign countries and their citizens who sent messages of condolences, support to the relief fund and the assurance of prayers. For example, the Eiffel Tower in Paris switched off its lights at midnight on 21st April. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai was lit up with the colors of the Sri Lankan flag in honor of the victims. We are also grateful to many other countries who showed similar gestures of solidarity with our people, and also the local and foreign business entities and individuals who generously supported the relief fund established to help the victims. We are thankful to the international media, especially those who interviewed me locally via phone, for reporting the true facts to the international community. I wish to state that even in the future, we need your support in reporting to the international community the true facts and the true image of our beautiful island nation and its people. We are grateful to those friendly nations that generously shared their intelligence information prior to the attack on several occasions, which our political leaders unfortunately did not take seriously. We are aggrieved that those responsible for governance at that time did not take seriously the repeated warnings received concerning these attacks, and so not only allowed this massacre to take place, but also sought to hide their culpability in different ways after the attack. Still more serious is the responsibility of all those who masterminded these attacks by planning, funding and encouraging and the perpetrators, and deliberately covering up the facts of the case. Some of them surely knew this was coming. We thank the incumbent president for his insistence in investigating these attacks thoroughly, and for ensuring that those who are responsible are brought to book. We are indeed sad and shocked to hear that some educated and elitist people, some of whom are connected to the legal profession, are trying to bring pressure on the president to cover up these investigations and possibly hide the authors. What are human rights when they try to use such to cover up the perpetrators and associates of those who violated the basic right to life of so many innocent human beings, men, women and children? We also wish to affirm our confidence in the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to investigate these events, and we are hopeful that we will be able to ascertain who orchestrated these attacks and who was behind it, as well as who shirked their responsibility to prevent them when they knew about it. At the same time, we Catholics wish to affirm our commitment to live harmoniously with the other religious groups, conscious of the common culture that has been enriched by the teachings of Buddhism to a very large extent, and in which culture we find a high level of acceptance and tolerance. Our challenge would be to work amicably with all our fellow citizens and to ensure a spirit of true acceptance and integration within the national fabric of cultures for a peaceful and prosperous new Sri Lanka.
And meanwhile, the nation observed a 2-minute silence at 8:45 a.m. and lit lamps in their residences, respectively, in memory of the victims of the Easter Sunday bombings. Remembering the victims of the Easter Sunday attack, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also observed a 2-minute silence after lighting this lamp at the official residence in Vijayara, Colombo. Buddhist religious observances were also carried out in temples. Victims of the Easter Sunday attack were commemorated in many places across the island.
Meanwhile, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assures that the true perpetrators responsible for this Easter Sunday massacre will be identified and brought before the law. He reiterates that he commiserates with all those who were adversely affected by the Easter Sunday massacre and all Sri Lankans who were deeply shocked by these barbaric acts. The President has said that he will ensure the safety of all communities in the country in accordance to the pledge he made in Vistas for Prosperity policy statement. Reiterating on this, the President said that he will not leave any room for any form of extremism or violence for any extremists to be unleashed on the people again. It is most unfortunate that the mechanisms that were in place to ensure national security were dismantled. When anarchy prevails, it is only natural for extremism, terrorism and all kinds of violence to raise its despicable head. Even though Catholics were targeted, this was a terrorist attack against all Sri Lankan citizens. This heinous crime against humanity needs to be condemned by all without any tolerance towards this extremist ideology. Therefore, the President said that the true perpetrators responsible for this Easter Sunday massacre will be identified and brought before the law. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also made remarks on the Easter Sunday attacks. He said that this was the worst terrorist attack on civilians ever to take place not only in Asia but also anywhere in the world. He said that the people in Sri Lanka are no strangers to suicide bombings. However, the Easter Sunday bombings differed from what the nation had experienced during the 30-year war against separatism. He said that the intelligence service of a friendly country had provided advance warning to then Sri Lankan government of the possible dates and targets of the attacks and the names and addresses, identity card numbers and even telephone numbers of the terrorists involved. Therefore, this attack could easily have been prevented, the Premier added.
And meanwhile, the United States government issued a statement to mark the anniversary of the terrorist bombings that shattered the peace of Sri Lanka and the world on Easter Monday 1 year ago. In the statement, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said just as the government of Sri Lanka works to hold those involved to account, the United States will not rest in its pursuit of justice for those who commit such atrocities. Secretary Pompeo said that the malicious attacks targeted churches and hotels, places where people had gone to worship and to enjoy time together on a holiday. We remembered that more than 250 victims of these ISIS-inspired attacks, including 5 US citizens, and extend our deepest condolences to their families and friends, he said. The US Secretary of State said in a statement that his country stands in solidarity with the survivors of this brutality and pray for their healings. Together with our Sri Lankan friends and partners, we reaffirm our shared commitment to countering terrorism while respecting civil liberties to ensure sustainable development for all and to freedom of religion and belief that support mutual respect, he said.
Meanwhile, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Lena B. Teplitz, also issued a statement to mark the anniversary of the Easter Sunday bombings in Sri Lanka.
I was in Colombo 1 year ago today on a peaceful Easter morning when word came of terrorists striking at hotels and churches. Today we're making common cause to defeat an attack of a different kind as COVID-19 stalks our communities. But we cannot forget the need to remain united to defeat terrorism and to promote respect and peace among ethnic and religious groups. It's hard to believe that 1 year has passed since that terrible day. The people of the United States share with you the pain of loss as we remember the victims and the survivors, which include several Americans. I also want to add a big thank you to the many Sri Lankans, from doctors and first responders to community and faith leaders who helped heal wounds and hearts after the bombings. As we face this current crisis together, I'm again inspired by the Sri Lankan people. You've shown strength and resilience in facing challenges. The United States is proud to partner with you as we both confront adversity at home and around the world.
And now let's move on to a brief report over the incidents and investigations carried out in connection to the Easter Sunday bombings occurred in April 21st, 2019. Revelations were made that all prior warnings were neglected and ignored, which were issued before 17 days, and lastly before 45 minutes on the carnage occurred in seven locations within 25 minutes. The country lost 269 people, including 45 children, in an instance due to the severe negligence. India's intelligence unit has informed relevant authorities over the suicide bombings expected to be carried out by an extremist group led by Zaharan Hashim 17 days prior to the incident. According to the information, the group had targeted Catholic and Christian churches in the country. The former government failed to take necessary measures against the extremists preached by Zaharan Hashim on social media platforms. Subsequently, conflicts occurred among several factions in Kathankudi area based on extremism, while many residents in the area suffered numerous physical and mental harassments from the followers of Zaharan. Much criticism was leveled against the government for failing to take proper measures to counter these incidents. 3 months before the series of bombings, a Pradesh Sabha member, Mohammad Taslim, was involved in a gun-shooting incident, forcing him to a bedring for exposing the extremist activities of Zaharan's organization, including the training camp and explosive storage in Laktawat, Vanathavelua area. The links between the locating of explosives inflicting damages to several Buddha statues in Mavanella and Islamic extremist attacks were unfortunately revealed after losing the lives of 269 victims. 4 suspects were taken into custody over the locating of explosives from Laktawat, while 1 suspect was released soon. Later, their persons was identified as the suicide bomber Muhammad Ibrahim Ilham Ahmed, who was responsible for the blast at Shangri-La Hotel. The first of the series of bombings were carried out by the suicide bomber Ashi Mohammadu Hastu, responsible for the blast at St. Sebastian's Church, Katwa Pitia, Nigambo. Suicide bomber Alauddin Ahmed Muad carried out the blast at St. Anthony's Church in Kochikade, Colombo. Mohammed Azhar, who came into Batiklo early morning, carried out the suicide bombing at Zion Church in Batiklo. 2 sons of renowned spice businessmen in the country and billionaire Mohammad Ibrahim had contributed large sums of funds for the extremist group of Zaharan. The eldest son of the businessman Iza Mohammed carried out the suicide bomb blast at Cinnamon Grand Hotel. His brother Ilham Mohammed, together with Zaharan Hashim, carried out the suicide bomb attacks at the Shangri-La Hotel. Abdul Latif Jamir Mohammed, who had received education in many foreign countries, including Australia and United Kingdom, had arrived at Taj Samudra Hotel to carry out the blast in the morning. However, his attempt was futile as the circuit of the bomb had malfunctioned. Subsequently, he had arrived to a lodge in Dehiwala and carried out with the blast at 1:30 p.m. Suicide bomber Mohammad Mubarak Mohammad Aslam is responsible for the blast at Kingsbury Hotel, Colombo. When the new information received over the terrorist activity, defense and police forces surrounded the residence of the spice businessman in Dematagoda. The pregnant wife of one of the Shangri-La Hotel suicide bomber blasted herself along with small children during the raid, showing the brutality in extremist terrorism. 3 police officers were also killed from this incident. The tri-forces were convened for the security of the country following the series of bombing, and continuous search operations were carried out across the country. Accordingly, much weaponry was discovered from various locations, including houses and religious establishments. However, then the ministry recluded these findings, claiming that the weapons were used to cut grass in these locations while demanding the security situation in the country. After a couple of days since the incident, search operations were carried out in Saindamardu and Samanthre in Kalmune and recovered many equipment belonging to Zaharan's group, including a stock of explosives by the defense forces. Several people, including the brother of Zaharan, had carried out suicide bomb blasts upon the recovery of the equipment, endangering the wife and the daughter of Zaharan. Then they were hospitalized with the mediation of Sri Lanka Army and the police. The Criminal Investigation Department has arrested 119 suspects, while Terrorism Investigation Unit has arrested 78 suspects thus far. 90 suspects are continuously being interrogated under the detention orders. 6 suspects were taken into custody last week in connection to the incident. Accordingly, brother of former Minister Rishad Baduddin, Riaz Baduddin, was taken into custody along with a lawyer and a custom officer. The investigations were slowly progressed since several months after the attack, while reinterpreted with a different perspective following the establishment of the present government, led by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Accordingly, a special Presidential Investigation Commission was appointed in addition to the Presidential Commission, and Parliamentary Select Committee. Fresh investigations have revealed that Saharan's group has planned for a second attack. Suspicion has risen why the attacks will be carried out in tourist hotspots in the country. Further investigations have been revealed that brother of Saharan had filmed the Kathankudi coastal line using drones. The security forces alleged that the group was experimenting with drones to carry out the next attack.
His Holiness Pope Francis has expressed deep solidarity with the Sri Lankan communities who mourn the victims of the Easter Sunday terror attacks in 2019. A statement intended for April 21st to mark the somber and commemoration of the carnage was released by the Vatican Secretariat of State in response to a request by His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith. On the first commemoration of the attacks of the Easter Sunday 2019, His Holiness Pope Francis joins the clergy and faithful of Sri Lanka, who together with the fellow Christians and members of the other religions solemnly marks the day. His Holiness expresses deep solidarity with the communities of Sri Lanka who mourn the deceased, and he implores for the risen Lord the balm of His compassion and mercy. The letter read, adding that he prays that this tragedy will draw Christians and those of other religions present in Sri Lanka ever closer together as they seek to build a society of greater tolerance and compassion, of forgiveness and peace. The message further read that it is the profound hope of Pope Francis that the hearts of Sri Lankans on this anniversary will overcome hatred with love, injury with pardon, discord with unity, for the common good of their society. Meanwhile, an expert analyst of the international terrorism, Professor Rohan Gunaratne, said national and regional cooperation must be enhanced to eliminate the growing terror threats in South Asia. He made these comments to Rupavahini in a statement to mark the first anniversary of the Easter Sunday bombings.
The threat of terrorist attacks by the Islamic State has grown significantly in South Asia and beyond after Easter Sunday attacks in Sri Lanka, because the attacks in Sri Lanka clearly demonstrated that the Islamic State was expanding beyond Iraq and Syria and threatening Europe, North America, Africa, Middle East and Asia. And last week we witnessed attack by the Islamic State in the Maldives, where they destroyed 7 boats, and several such attacks taking place in Afghanistan, Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh. So what we are seeing is that this is a regional phenomenon that requires a sustained response. One should never think that the Easter Sunday attack is a one-off attack and other attacks are not going to take place. So there must be a concerted response on the part of the Muslim leadership, the ACJU, the various Muslim organizations and leaders, to make sure that the Muslim community is not radicalized, and the government must work very closely with the Muslim religious leaders, educational leaders, to make sure that there is no threat of extremism, and also that the Sinhalese and the Tamils and the Muslims live together in harmony and in peace as Sri Lankans. Easter Sunday attacks in Sri Lanka galvanized very significant cooperation in South Asia, not only with Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and India, Sri Lanka and Maldives, Sri Lanka and Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Afghanistan, but also other countries. So without working together, the Islamic State cannot be fought, because the Islamic State is a global movement. And unless governments build common databases, exchange personnel, do joint training, joint operations, share experience, expertise and resources, the threat is going to grow. So one should never think this is a domestic threat. One should never think that without working together with other partners they can win the fight. Everyone has to work together. So the old mentality before 9/11 was need to know. Today it is called need to share. That means Army, Navy, Air Force, Police, Intelligence Services, they all have to share information and intelligence. If you don't share and if you don't work together, that means the threat is going to grow.
And the Easter Sunday bombing shocked the entire world, attracting the attention of not only international security specialists but world media as well. Accordingly, BBC news agency produced a documentary under the title Terror in Paradise. This is an insight on the Easter Sunday tragedy and the circumstances based on the incident.
A young man walks towards the church. Anusha and her family are in the congregation.
පිරිමි කෙනෙක් ඇතුල් වෙනවා දැක්කමම ලොකු ට්‍රැවලින් බෑග් එකක් දාන් හිටියේ ලොකු එකක්. පැස්සක් වගේ වහිනවා වගේ මං හිතන්නේ උළු කැට වැටුණා. මා වැළුණා. දුව ඉස්සරහා බංකොට වැටිලා හිටියා. ඔළුවේ මේ පැත්ත එහාගේ ලේ තිබුණා. දුවට කතා කරා දුව කතා කරේ නෑ. මගේ මහත්තයාව හොයාගත්තේ එයා දාලා තියෙන ඇඟිලිවල ගොඩක් මුදු. ඊට පස්සේ මං දැනගත්තා මගේ මහත්තයායි පුතායි ඉවරයි කියලා. මං දුවව බේරා ගන්න තමයි කෑ ගැහුවේ ඊට පස්සේ.
Anusha and her daughter are rushed to hospital. But doctors can't save Sajini.
මගේ දරුවෝ දෙන්නයි මහත්තයයි නැති වුණේ මැරුණේ එක සැරේයි. මං තප්පරෙන් මැරෙන එක්කෙනෙක්.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa emphasized the vitality of taking measures to provide essential services effectively with the participation of limited number of personnel once the curfew is lifted. President also instructed the officials to plan both public and private sector services in a people-friendly manner. President issued these directives at a meeting with the secretaries to the ministries and heads of several entities tasked with providing essential services held at the Presidential Secretariat today. The importance of immediately initiating development activities such as laying pipelines and road construction, which can be carried out under supervision, was also highlighted by the President. Advising the officials on the manner employees should be called for work, the President said that the head of each institute should resume work in accordance with the recommended guidelines. President also advised the officials to continue to provide services in areas including the Western Province where the curfew is in force. The President said that taking steps to transport crops from rural areas to urban areas by using the buses belonging to the SLTD would be a great relief to the farmers. Formulating a plan to distribute medicines issued by the hospitals and pharmacies during the curfew time via post could ease the burden on patients. Even though the government has implemented a systematic program to eradicate the coronavirus, citizens not adhering to the guidelines of the government properly is a major obstacle to prevent the spread of the virus. The President also emphasized that the virus control measures should be intact while the curfew is being relaxed and services must continue in order to restore normal life. Secretary to the President, P.B. Jayasundara, secretaries to the ministry and several other chairmen were present at this discussion. In other stories, with the corporate and individual donations and direct donations, the COVID-19 healthcare and social security funds balance has now surpassed 785 million rupees. Another 32 million rupees worth donations have been directed to the COVID-19 fund yesterday. Chief Prelate in the Singapore, Venerable Bellamina Dhammaratanathera, has donated 5 million rupees, while Chief Prelate in the USA, Venerable Maharagama Dhammasiri Pera, has made a donation of 5 million. Chief Prelate in France, Venerable Paravahara Chandra Ratanathera, contributed with 1 million rupees donation, and the chief incumbent of Geneva International Buddhist Temple in Switzerland, Venerable Tavalamaddamikathera, and Viharadhikari Venerable Halvitagala Sujata Thera have donated 1 million rupees. Chief incumbent of Bauddha Ayathanaya in Mount Lavania, Venerable Diviga Yasasi Thera has donated 1 million rupees, while the chief incumbent of Samadhi Vihari in Firenze, Italy, Venerable Dumadeni Nandasiri Thera donated 200,000 rupees. Also 5 million rupees was donated by Mr. C.J. Vikramaratna, while Marine One donated 1 million rupees. Marina Food Private Limited and Sri Lanka Heart Association made donations worth 5 million rupees each. Road Transport Services Authority has made a contribution of 500,000 rupees, while Mr. A. Amarasinghe has donated 100,000 rupees and Mr. P. D. Dharmavardhana 50,000 rupees. The COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund also received several donations today. The donations made to the fund were Gamanu Watch Ex-Servicemen's Regimental Association 50,000 rupees and Association of Licensed Aircraft Engineers 1.5 million rupees. Contributions of 5 million rupees each were made by GlaxoSmithKline plc and Vijay Products Private Limited, and 1 million each by the Nishiko International Private Limited, People's Insurance and Russian Educational Center. Sri Lanka Vehicle Exporters Association made a contribution of 10 million rupees to the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund today. The donation was handed over to the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. President of the association, Ranjan Piris, was also present at this occasion. All the donations will be credited to the special account opened under the numbers 85737373 at the corporate branch of the Bank of Ceylon. Further details can be obtained from Mr. K.B. Egodavella, Director General Administration of the Presidential Secretariat, through the telephone numbers 011 2354 479 or 0112 354 354.
And the number of coronavirus infections in the country has escalated to 310 after identifying 6 new COVID-19 patients today. 5 of the newly identified patients are the residents of Sir Bandaranaike Mawatha in Kesalvatha, Colombo. The other person was detected from Varakapala area. The COVID-19 patient detected from Varakapala area had closely interacted with the infected patient who was identified from the same area on a previous occasion. Biosamples were obtained from 91 residents in Sir Bandaranaike Mawatha, Kesalvatha, Colombo for the PCR test yesterday. According to the reports, 5 more persons were recorded to have contracted the disease. 1,010 persons belonging to 242 families in Kesalvatha were directed to Sri Lanka Army quarantine centres. 30 out of 33 patients whom were identified from Sir Bandaranaike Mawatha, Kesalvatha, Colombo area had been directed to the quarantine process. A corona-infected female, a returnee from India, was detected from Kotahena on 15th of this month. The newly identified patients are neighbours of the coronavirus-infected female. 61 COVID-19 patients have been identified from Sir Bandaranaike Mawatha, Kesalvatha, Colombo and neighbouring areas at present. Another person was identified as a COVID-19 infected patient last night. He is a businessman of fisheries in Periyandal area. Sri Lanka Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said that brother of the COVID-19 patient had returned from Australia. He said that the patient had self-quarantined at home for 14 days. He said that this person has stayed at the residence of COVID-19 patient. The Army Commander said that this person had been engaged in selling fish products on online platforms and had visited the fish market as well. He said that all suspicious persons potential to be contracted with the disease expected to be directed to quarantine centres. 5 family members of the COVID-19 patient recorded from Peliyandara area and 6 others in neighbouring houses have been directed to self-quarantine process yesterday. Relevant biosamples from those persons were obtained for the PCR tests. 81 residents in 19 houses in the area have also been directed to self-quarantine process. Meanwhile, the trading activities in the Palliagoda fish market have been limited with immediate effect. The Minister of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Development said that this limitation was imposed as a preventive measure to curb the spread of the coronavirus by limiting public gatherings. Accordingly, the trading activities of the fish market have been limited to wholesale trading affairs. Meanwhile, the fish market was disinfected by the Sri Lanka Navy. Another COVID-19 patient was reported from Boralaskamu area yesterday. Sri Lanka Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said that this patient is suffering from a kidney-related disease and receiving treatments from a private medical centre in Kottava. He said that the patient has visited the medical centre thrice a week. He said that another previous identified COVID-19 patient had visited the medical centre 2 weeks before. Employees of the medical centre where the COVID-19 patients had received treatments have been directed to the PCR test today. Health authorities directed to close down the medical centre. The wife of the COVID-19 patient has also been directed for a medical examination accordingly. The total number of coronavirus patients in the country has increased to 310 at present. Meanwhile, another 4 patients were discharged from the hospital following their recovery. Accordingly, 102 patients have been recovered from the disease. 201 persons are still receiving treatment in hospitals. Country's COVID-19 death toll stands at 7 at present. Another 158 persons have been directed to medical examinations. Meanwhile, Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi visited the epidemiology unit and praised the staff for being committed in their services amid few facilities available for them at the unit. The minister said that steps will be taken to provide necessary facilities to carry out their services without hindrance. Also, a meeting was held with the participation of retired health secretaries and director generals of the health sector to obtain instructions to curb the spread of the virus. The police says that close to 35,000 people have been arrested for violating curfew regulations thus far. Meanwhile, the government has decided to close down all liquor outlets across the island until further notice. With the government declaration to close down all liquor outlets across the island this morning, open liquor stores in curfew-lifted areas were closed down. In other districts except high-risk districts, the curfew was lifted at 5 a.m. and reimposed at 8 p.m. In this district, the curfew will be enforced from 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. on the following morning until the Friday 24th of this month. Accordingly, curfew in these districts will be imposed during the weekend 25th and 26th of this month continuously. The curfew imposed in Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Puttalam district, identified as high-risk areas of spreading of coronavirus, had been extended till 5 a.m. on Monday 27th of this month. It is fully prohibited for any unauthorized person to either enter or leave the districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Puttalam. The police have arrested 34,828 persons for violating the curfew orders thus far since the curfew was first imposed. The police have also taken 8,913 vehicles into the custody thus far. During the past 24 hours, 602 persons have been arrested for violating curfew regulations, while 162 vehicles have been taken into custody. Operations to detect curfew violators have been expanded in high-risk zones and other areas.
The Gazette notification declaring the parliamentary election was issued last night. Accordingly, the general election set to take place on June 20th. The Parliament was dissolved on March 2nd this year in accordance to the powers vested with the President under the 19th Constitutional Amendment. Accordingly, a decision was reached to hold the general election on April 25, 2020. The acceptance of relevant nominations was also carried out accordingly. Issuing a statement, the Election Commission said that the election cannot be held on the scheduled date due to the coronavirus epidemic situation. After carrying out the discussions with the health authorities and other relevant authoritative divisions yesterday, the Election Commission has decided to hold the general election on June 20th. Meanwhile, a meeting was held this morning between main political party leaders contesting for the general election and members of the Election Commission. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva and Acting IGP C.D. Vikramaratne met with the members of the Election Commission this evening.
And President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that the promise made to the people will be fulfilled by implementing policies including Indonesian policy framework, vistas of prosperity and splendor while successfully facing the threat of coronavirus. The President made these remarks in a discussion with Principal Advisor to President Mr. Lalit Weeratunga. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that in accordance to the data obtained, he is capable in taking correct decisions accordingly. He said that the intelligence unit have carried out a great amount of work in obtaining necessary information. He said that apart from COVID-19 patients, information on how other patients were infected and relevant contact tracing have been obtained. He said that they have looked into ways to restrict these identified persons into smaller clusters in smaller areas. Subsequently, he said that they decided to restrict them in accordance to relevant police divisions. He said that enforced curfews and relevant directive mechanisms will be extended in police divisions with most number of identified persons. The President pointed out that curfew enforced districts which have not recorded a single COVID-19 patient can consider to be open in order to proceed with office for work of relevant activities. He said that a mechanism with enforced restrictions has been introduced on this regard. He requested the public to strictly adhere to the instructions given by the government on this regard. He emphasized that the threat on the corona country from the spread of COVID-19 has yet to be seized. He said that the spread of the virus has been managed and controlled, and the support of the public is required to further continue the government efforts to curb the spread of the virus. The President said that he would prefer to the country be completely locked down for another month when considering the quarantine process. However, he said that a critical decision had been taken to the government as juncture. Considering the prevailing situation in the country, he said that Independent Election Commission had the opportunity to hold the general election in a suitable manner. He said that the Election Commission could even consider in taking several days to conduct the election. The President said that the Election Commission has been empowered with a substantial authority under the Constitution to conduct the general election. He added that he would not pressure on influence of the Election Commissioner either to hold or postpone the election at any time. The President said that all necessary measures were taken within the constitutional provisions during this period, and the new date to convene the Parliament has been informed. He said that if the new Parliament has not been convened before June 2nd after conducting the election, then he would not be able to convene the Parliament accordingly. If not, he said that the election should be convened on a future date, as he has no legal authority to convene the Parliament, stating that law does not expect to do the impossible. The President said that he has no intention in reconvening the previous Parliament, whatever the cause may be. He said that today the people have the opportunity to understand the disguised motives of those who dreamed the country could be taken into a constitutional crisis by continuous calling for the postponement of the elections. He said he would remind everyone at this point there is no special legal issue as to what the country needs, how it can be done, and it continuously very clear should be done and who has the ultimate responsibility. The President said he expects to fulfill the pledge made to the public through the implementation of national policy framework, vistas of prosperity and splendor amid COVID-19 threat which has affected the entire nation. Then he requested the nation to extend the support to fulfill these needful for the country.
Meanwhile, a Sri Lankan plane carrying 113 Sri Lankan students from Lahore and Karachi, Pakistan, landed at the Bandaranaike International Airport, Katunayake, this evening. The students returned to the country after being stranded in several countries will be sent to quarantine centres for quarantining process. Sri Lankan Airlines has decided to operate special flights from India's Amritsar, Coimbatore, Pakistan's Karachi, Lahore and Nepal's Kathmandu to bring home 433 Sri Lankan students who have been stranded overseas due to the prevailing travel restrictions imposed in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. These special flights were operated as a part of the government of Sri Lanka's program to bring back Sri Lankan students stranded in foreign countries and are being carried out in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
And meanwhile, the Urban Development Authority has taken steps to provide relevant approvals for subdivision of lands and building constructions through online processes. Accordingly, a request has been made to the public to direct ID applications through emails. Urban Development Authority has taken this decision with the objective to maintain the construction industry without a hindrance after lifting the curfew. Chairman of the authority has said that necessary information on this regard can be obtained through www.uda.gov.lk website.